so I'm a bit nervous, you just bear with me. So I'd like to start by sharing a bit of my story of how a doctor who works as part of a team with natural therapists can be such a help. Most people look at me and think I'm healthy and well. They don't realise that I've got a lot of hidden illnesses. I had a history of abuse since I was a child, from physical abuse to sexual abuse through to domestic violence. And at 26 I was diagnosed with PTSD. I also had health issues starting from when I was a baby, with allergies, fat intolerance, a curvature of the spine, and at 28 I injured my back at work. After a year's intensive treatment, there was no improvement, so they did more tests and found out that I had HLA-B27 positive. It's an autoimmune disease which causes the body not to be able to heal itself. So they said that that was it, that was my life, I would never work again. So at 28, this is it, find a way to live, get on with it. Needless to say, it was a hard year. They put me in a brace. I had to wear a brace from here down to here to hold everything in place, and I was told I would never ever walk without that. For 10 years, I didn't walk without it, but after 10 years, I finally got out of it. And for 10 years, we tried many different therapies, and my husband said a few times, look, is it worth keeping on going? And I said, well, while there's something left to try, there's hope, and that's all I've got. We heard about cranial therapy, which was down here in Bustleton, so we came down and I had 6 treatments. After 6 treatments, I took the brace off and never worn it again. So that was through an osteopath. Just as life seemed to be getting better, I was then diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I had 4 hospitalisations in 2 years before they were able to get it under control, and the only way they could do that was with very large doses of medications. 4 years later, my organs started failing from taking so many medications. I'd always been interested in natural healing and studied Reiki, crystal healing, aromatherapy, massage and reflexology. I was also part of a Healing Hands group, and we were actually introduced to the SCIO machine. A naturopath had brought it along to show us, and we were each given 10 minutes on it. Afterwards, she took me aside and said to me, have you been diagnosed with bipolar? I said, yes, why? She said, it is showing up on the machine. Well, I was fascinated with that because there is no test for it. You go to a psychiatrist and they diagnose you. I told her the group knew of my condition, so we shared with them. At the time, I was stable on my meds and happy, so we didn't do anything further. When my organs failed, I said, well, let's try the machine. So I rang Tamara, who's the naturopath who ran the machine, and I said to her, can you help me? And she said, well, she could definitely help my organs, but she didn't know if she could work with the bipolar, as she'd never treated anyone with bipolar before. I said, that was fine. If you can keep my organs going, I can keep taking my meds. So I went and saw her, and 3 days later, I felt zonked out like I was really drugged, and I'd never had that feeling before. So I rang my psych, Dr. Proud, and I said to him, look, this is what I've done, because a lot of doctors don't like you seeing natural therapists. And he was fantastic. He said, look, you're over-medicated, we'll start cutting your meds down. Within 3 months, I was off all the medication and still stable, which for a mental illness, that's just, you don't go off your meds. So it was something that I was doing with the psych, and we were going to monitor it so that if there was any changes, I was safe. But I was so glad that I had a psych who was open to natural therapies. And I then told my GP what I'd done, and he laughed at me. So I asked him to run some blood tests. He did the tests and was amazed that all my organs were in fact functioning a lot better, and that was only a week after the treatment. For the first year I had monthly appointments on the machine, then bi-monthly, then quarterly, finally just once or twice a year to have brainwave balancing. We then moved to Bustleton, and I thought my health would improve with a more relaxed lifestyle, but unfortunately the pain increased, and after further investigation I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. The first rheumatologist I saw said my spine was the level of an 83-year-old and that I needed to hop into a wheelchair. I was devastated. I was only 44. So I refused to do that and went to see another rheumatologist who said, yes, I had severe osteoarthritis of the spine, but I also had fibromyalgia. I'd never heard of this. He put me on 10 milligrams of NDEP to see if that would help. I have multiple drug allergies, so the normal treatments of anti-inflammatories, etc., they couldn't use. He told me never to even think about being pain-free, as that was just a pipe dream, but that he would get me as mobile as possible so I could live life. So with his help and the purchase of a specially designed motorhome, I was able to travel with my husband for a number of years. However, the pain was still increasing and my meds were going up. So I started doing Pilates at the Loft House with Anna Foley, who's a physio, and I had also bought a spa and found that these were really helping. Again, hope starting to come through the clouds. And then my health took another downward dive and I was losing my balance. I couldn't remember anything. I didn't know if it was MS or whether it was early stage Alzheimer's. So I was sent to a neurologist. When I saw the neurologist, he said, you've definitely got the symptoms, but it's not neurological. So he ran a whole lot of tests, came back and said that I was actually highly poisoned by vitamin B6. But they didn't understand why that was happening because vitamin B6 is a water-soluble vitamin which should just wash through your body. So he recommended that I see an immunologist and a dietitian to find out why it was causing me problems. I was not even taking vitamin B6, I was only taking magnesium, 1 tablet a day for cramps, and in that it had a tiny little bit of vitamin B6. So I went back to my local doctor and asked for referrals to the immunologist and dietitian, and she said, no, you've seen enough specialists, I don't believe you're taking 1 tablet a day. So I was flabbergasted. I'd never lied or given her any reason to doubt me. So after I left the surgery, I rang the neurologist to ask, is this going to make a difference seeing these people? And he said, yes, you're the most serious case I've ever seen. And he said, I think it might be, he said, I will give you referrals to these specialists and maybe it's time that you look for a different doctor. So as a result of seeing the immunologist and dermatologist and having biopsies done, I was diagnosed with systematic vasculitis and eczema. The eczema didn't surprise me as I'd always had asthma. So I then knew I had to look for another doctor. And this was a hugely daunting prospect. To tell someone my case history, to start again was hard work. So I spoke to Serge, my osteopath, and he said that there were some doctors in Busselton that were working with natural therapists. So I got some names and went along to one of them, and she was fantastic. She had me fill out a questionnaire, was very thorough with, I could sit down in my own time, write out all the illnesses, treatments to date, all my allergies. When I saw her, she actually referred me to a trauma counsellor and a dietitian initially to see what was happening, and the dietitian recommended allergy testing. She explained that she was going to treat me as part of a team. So she was like the team leader, and then there was my physio, my trauma counsellor, my osteo, and anyone else that I needed to see around the edge. Finally, I felt that I was going to get somewhere because they were all working together instead of everybody working against each other. And the result of this is that they've been able to address some of the underlying causes of my illnesses. A big one being that I've learned to turn off my flight-fight mechanism, which when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was told there was nothing they could do. So for years I'd lived with that, whereas now they can actually show you how to turn your flight-fight mechanism off, and that was huge. And also to eat a diet that's right for me and to live a much fuller life with less pain. Life was beginning to look up again, and then life threw another curveball. Last October, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 2 years to live. This was a huge shock as he was fit and healthy, and he had been my carer for years. We had been redesigning our house over the previous 2 years to make it easier for me if anything happened to him. So I told him we would be okay. I had everything I needed to support my health, and if we needed extra help, we could get it. Most of you would know that any of these situations on their own could probably... go back. 4 days later, our house burnt down. We lost everything. All my supports, my spa, all our memories, our whole life, it was gone. We were devastated and didn't know where to turn. Most of you would know that any of these situations on their own could and probably would bring on a bipolar episode. I turned to my doctor and she was amazing. She got the trauma counsellor to ring me and work with me. She got the naturopath to increase the treatments on the machine to help both my poisoning issues and keep my brainwaves stable. My osteo gave me extra treatments. And her support and that of my natural therapist was amazing. I felt like these people were part of my family. Without them, I know that I would not be standing here today. I was devastated. My husband was my love, my rock, my best friend. We'd been married for 23 years and together for 25 years. I had no idea. 5 months later, he passed away in March this year. He had started treatment in the hope of prolonging his life, at least long enough to get our house rebuilt and me back into it, but he didn't make it. I had no idea how I was going to go on living. In spite of all the trauma, loss and grief, I am still alive. I am still functioning and I still have hope for the future, none of which had been possible if I had not been treated by a doctor who worked with natural therapists and also who believed in me. Over the years, one of the things that's kept me going is my photography, which I refer to as healing art, as it helps me stay in the moment, gets me out in nature, allows me to share with others and to help others, and I also do digital art. And that's also given me a hope for the future, that there is something that I can do and make a difference. I also have a strong faith. While I don't subscribe to any religion, I believe there is a loving being who is always there for us if we ask for help. My faith and the medical practitioners I have around me have enabled me to survive the trauma and the grief that life has thrown at me. We can do it, one day at a time, one moment at a time, sometimes 1 second at a time. We just have to keep going. People say to me, how can you survive all of that? And I say, you don't actually have a choice. We're the ones still living. So there's a reason that we're here. So we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Thank you.